city. And thank you, as always, for all of its residents, for all of its business owners, and for all of its employees. And ask you, please, would watch over us all. Be with everyone coming up on the long holiday week, 3-day weekend coming up, and watch over particularly our first responders and keep them out of harm's way. Thank you for this good country that we have opportunities such as this. We thank you for the troops that make that possible, and ask you please would watch over them and bring them home safely to their families. Help us to remember at this time the privilege it is to have an opportunity like this that not everyone in the world has, and ask you please would be with us to remember the things that do unite us as opposed to divide us, and that after we get done doing the work of this city in a way that sometimes will lead to disagreements, that we all proceed on the same page and all together. Bless, keep the work of our hands and the meditation of our hearts, that they may be acceptable in your sight. Thank you most of all for your Son. It's in His name. Amen. Join me in the pledge to the United States flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Is this considered a special call Lions Club meeting? It's a backup meeting. Okay. All right. The next item is public testimony. Citizens are invited to speak on any topic or agenda item before and during the meeting by response to the mayor to be recognized. However, unless the item is specifically listed on the agenda, the council is required under the Texas Open Meetings Act to limit our response with a statement of specific factual information reciting the city's existing policy on the issue or directing the person making the inquiry to visit the city staff about the issue. No council deliberation is permitted for topics not specifically listed on this agenda. So do we have any citizens' public testimony for any topics not listed on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to item number 5, which is to consider approval of ordinance number 1371-2023, calling an election to be held in the city of River Oaks, Texas, to submit a proposition on repealing the sales and use tax of 0.5% for the benefit of the Type B Economic Development Corporation, increasing the local sales and use tax from the rate of 1% to 1.5% for the local sales and use tax. So with that, this is not a public hearing, but we do want to take any input that you'll have. So if there's anybody here that wants to speak, you'll be given an opportunity. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to our city manager to speak, and then council will speak, and then we will be interested in hearing all opinions that are offered. So, Marvin, take it away.
This ordinance is presented, is called an election. This is the deadline to call a special election that can be held with our normal city election on May the 6th. All this ordinance and calling this election is to reallocate sales tax, the 0.5%, which currently has been set up for the EDC. It would be transferred into the general fund. It is not an ordinance or an election to abolish the EDC or anything such as that. It is only for the reallocation of sales tax. I have gone through the state controller and looked at all the cities that are involved. I do know that the city of Lake Worth in 2018 chose to do this by reallocating their sales tax money into the general fund. One reason being you have more versatility if it's in the general fund than you do if it's in EDC. EDC is controlled by state statute. Us being a 4B EDC, we are held to certain requirements to qualify a project or something of that nature to be expended with EDC funds. The board has to actually hear it through a public hearing and then qualify it, and then once they do, then they send that up to the governing body, which is the city council, to approve their decision their qualification of the project. Again, this is how we've been doing it all this time. It was in 1995 that the City of River Oaks held an election, and the Economic Development Corporation with a 0.5% sales tax was passed by the citizens of River Oaks at that time. If this is passed tonight by the City Council, it merely just calls an election. The citizens will then vote as to whether they're for it or against it. And if the citizens vote that they're against it, that's the end of it. If the citizens vote for it, then the City Council will have several options before them regarding the Economic Development Corporation. A lot of cities that don't have the economic sales tax, they still have economic development boards. It's all through the state controller's website that I went through. And I guess with having said that, I guess I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Martin. So I'm not gonna read everything I read on Tuesday, but I do want to reiterate some points, and everybody's, if you don't know where I stand, you'll know pretty quick. So I do have a great deal of appreciation for we've got most EDC members here, so I appreciate what you do. The fact that EDC exists is because in the mid-90s it was permitted for cities to go up above their 1 cent, but they had to do it for some sort of special either district, or it had to be devoted to streets or devoted to offsetting property taxes. So that's why a lot of cities went into the adding EDCs, adding crime districts, there's library districts, a few other things. About 7 or 8 years ago, the state did away with that. They said you can go up to 2, however you do it is up to you. And so, personally, I don't think that having an extra layer of bureaucracy is always something that's a good idea, and that is what it winds up being. That is not a knock on y'all. Y'all didn't create that, but we do have an issue or a situation now where at times we basically wind up negotiating with an arm of our own city to get funds to do something, and in particular with the fact that there's a lot of eligible expenses that this EDC does not cover. It's normal for an EDC to put money towards a community center. I don't believe that's happened in at least 10 years. It's normal for EDCs to contribute towards parks. I don't know that the EDC has ever contributed towards our park. It's normal for EDCs to contribute towards salaries of employees that put extensive amounts of time into EDC, because over the years EDC has rejected hiring a full-time person. So literally any time something gets handed to staff, it winds up going to Martin. And every time there's a meeting, Paul winds up putting it together. So this past summer, as part of budget, EDC did finally agree, after initially rejecting it, that it would contribute a portion of Martin's salary. It seems like every time we point something out that normal EDCs do, and we do ask for help, it seems like it sort of gets some pushback. It seems like basically, it came up, and there were 3 members of the EDC here that night 3 weeks ago whenever we had a long discussion about a community center issue and whether, and it came up that, hey, EDC could help out. And so it did not seem like any of the 3 people that, the members that were here that night, were necessarily advocating for the whole thing on Monday. And so somehow that turned into, from 18,000 that would have helped us out, well, here's 4,000. And that didn't seem like a partnership at that point, much less the idea that we as the council are finally responsible for the execution of the funds and the well-being of this city. A little bit of history I also want to give. I touched on this back during budget, but